Welcome to GTC's Teaching Tidbits. Each episode, we explore a teaching technique, tip, practice, or idea from faculty for faculty. And in our current set of episodes, we are focusing on subject matter related to teaching online, hybrid blended, or fully online courses. And today we have joining us from the Speech Communication Department, Rebecca Ferguson. Welcome, Rebecca.
Hi, Rachel. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm so glad to have you with us today. Would you share just a little bit about your background and courses that you teach and formats that you've taught?
Absolutely. Rachel, I have been with Greenville Technical College since 1997. And so that makes this maybe 24 years, I think, if I'm counting correctly. I've been teaching Speech 205. And when the Benson campus opened up large enough for a full-time faculty member to teach public speaking, I moved out to the Benson campus in 2002. And then from there was able to also teach online components and recently became the APD for the department with scheduling. And I also get to teach a little bit of the COL 111 class as my part of Greenville Tech.
Wonderful. And I love you have so many different experiences in terms of teaching and teaching formats. And I know the satellite campuses are very thankful to have our speech faculty like you out there for the students. And so I'm excited because your background perfectly fits with the subject matter that you're going to be sharing about today. In episode 14, we explored the importance of accessibility in our courses, and today's episode continues that discussion by looking at another important element in our courses that can impact accessibility and also just the overall experience itself, and that is audio quality. So Rebecca, I'm going to turn it over to you to share your teaching tidbit.
Can you hear me now? Do you remember when you first got your cell phone and you were having to make sure that whoever was on the other end could hear you clearly? Now we're saying you're on mute. This time last year, it seemed that we were all forced into a situation where we were communicating mostly online for lectures, for meetings, and it became a very frequent comment, "You're on mute." As we talk about accessibility, we can take pause to see how our sound and audio content quality can impact the listener. So whether you are a presenter or a participant in an online meeting or a faculty member recording a lecture, a trainer recording training episodes, we can all stand to take a little bit of time to make sure that we're providing the best audio quality. You can create high quality audio experience for online meetings and recordings, whether you are the presenter or the participant. Now, I did find a screenshot of a Collaborate session that I gave a year ago when we were first coming out of spring break in 2020, and all of our classes were immediately forced to go online. And this is a small corner of my home, and I was able to do what I could with the resources to provide an online quality experience. My goodness, I've gone back and seen now how much within 1 year I've been able to improve that by just looking at what was done and what can be done as we intentionally take great strides and steps to make the best audio quality experience. Now you might ask, how can I have a high quality audio experience? Well, it starts by just being intentional. I'm going to give you 3 E's: environment, equipment, and enunciation. If we're intentional with these 3 E's, we can make our online meeting experience better for both those who are listening to us and as the listener ourselves. Our environment has a lot to do with the components of space with regard to sound. So starting with choosing the right place to have your online meeting or recording is definitely imperative. If you can, choose a small room, preferably one with carpet rather than tile, and avoid perhaps a space with empty walls. And so once you've chosen that place, then choose a stable seat. Now, I'm sitting in a desk chair today that has the ability to swivel back and forth and lean back and forth. And yet I'm having to control my own posture in that seat. But you can do a lot by setting yourself up for good audio quality by not having a noisy chair or the temptation to perhaps work out some of that nervous anxiety by moving back and forth in your chair. Your proximity to devices is also a choice that you can make. Now, we may not all get a chance to choose our resources. If you've been delegated a particular type of computer, PC, laptop, you may be limited to what that proximity is like. And yet, any of us could find a stack of books to elevate our computer screen, or perhaps have an external type of device such as this webcam and place it at the right proximity for both our image and sound. And since we're talking about sound today, what we want to do is make sure that our voice is most clearly understood, and that starts with proximity to devices. Now, I'm using this particular microphone today, and so whether I turn from side to side, the microphone is the same proximity. But if you're using the microphone on a computer, you'll want to do the best to stay at a very stable place and help control that. Try to silence distractions. I'm in my office presenting today, so I've muted my cell phone, I've muted my desktop phone. A sign is on my door saying that I'm in a virtual meeting, and those distractions can definitely add to a great recording environment or meeting environment. And then anticipate interruptions. It's possible that you forgot to turn off an alarm that was set, or you're presenting from a hotel room. Many of you travel, and those extra interruptions could impair the environment while presenting. So that's our first E. We want to make sure that we are intentional with our environment. Choose wisely. Secondly, choose your equipment. It's always a good idea, whether you're presenting or participating, to have headphones or earbuds. Normally, when I'm attending a meeting, I might just simply use something simple as an earbud or headphones. Today, I'm using one with a microphone because I feel like the sound quality is better as a presenter. But take time to set up that microphone and set up your headset so you have the access to your own resources to check the input and output levels. As you're entering a meeting, you want to start with the default of being on mute. And then just as you are intentional about entering a meeting on mute, when it's your turn to speak, take time to, with composure, unmute your microphone and then speak. Now, oftentimes, just being familiar with your equipment in a Zoom meeting, perhaps know where the chat box is and follow the host's guidelines about interrupting or interacting. And oftentimes it's best to just stay on mute. Demo your audio. Do you know that there's so much good that can be had by going back and looking at some already published meetings? I was recording just this morning an orientation for an online class that I am teaching. And as painful as you may find it, it is really helpful to go back and see what you've published and learn from it. So demo that audio, and then, as we tend to be most critical of ourselves, you can improve by just making your own observations. And then for those of you who do a lot of recording, whether lectures or training videos, you might take the advice of Michelle Bleichley to use Screencast-O-Matic because you can record in smaller segments and it makes the editing process that much easier. Now, if you do some more sophisticated recording, you might consider a microphone that has a pop filter. Oftentimes when someone over-articulates, the plosives would pop in the microphone, and having those screens or pop filters may be most helpful. I've done a lot of voice over work for the college and for other places in the past 20 years and have had great success in just choosing the right microphone for the right setting. And sound professionals will tell you if you're doing this on a more wide scale, you may want to consider purchasing better equipment for that recording. All right, so we have our environment and we have our equipment. Now we're going to enunciate clearly. Would you believe that one of the best components for a good audio content is your own voice? Let's take a lesson from the late Alex Trebek. In a video recording of an interview with Alex Trebek, he mentioned how much time he spent in preparation to get ready for the recordings of the show Jeopardy! It had everything to do with being prepared with what you were going to say, how you were going to say it, the rate of speed, and even planning the right pause. There are many times when a message can be more clearly given and understood by the listener by just practicing where the pause will be. It will definitely impact understanding. So let's speak clearly when it's your turn to speak. Control your speaking rate. Sometimes when you're on camera and people are watching you, you tend to go faster. It's a fight or flight instinct, and you just don't want the attention on you anymore. Take deep breaths. Allow for pauses. In fact, that breath support can start by choosing the right chair, sitting up straight, and allowing for good breath support. We have to breathe to live, but we can also breathe to speak. And breathing to speak has a lot to do with our posture and being able to control that rate of speech. And finally, if you are on a recording, you're on a Zoom meeting, you're in an online platform, and you're not on mute, please don't eat or chew gum, and try to eliminate as many outside noises as possible for everyone's experience. So, are you ready to embrace the ease of using the ease of environment, equipment, and enunciation? I do want to give special thanks to a few friends I reached out to before making this presentation. In the Center for Professional Excellence, Rachel Cobb and Zach both gave their input for some of the best tips, and I appreciate them sharing those with me and for Rachel having me today. And then in the CISC office, Lee and Michelle have always been real helpful at giving great advice for both recording and uploading great lectures and meeting information. So Rachel, I want to ask you, can you hear me now? Or wait a minute, should I say, can you hear me more clearly now?
Thank you so much, Rebecca. That was some wonderful content there, especially just breaking it down into practical tips that walk us through some of those just small considerations that can make such a huge difference in the experience and the audio quality for our students, for other participants in the meetings that we're running, and helping us avoid some of those common pitfalls that we know we've all experienced as listeners in a meeting as well. So thank you so much for sharing all of that great information today.
You're welcome, Rachel. I'm glad that I could be here. May I add one more piece?
Yes, please do.
I do think as we're talking about accessibility, when you are recording something that has a transcript, it helps to have that enunciation most clearly. You'll have fewer places to edit in the end, And so I wanted to just put a plug in there too. It's a great thing to be mindful of all of those components, but mostly speaking clearly, and it will help everyone.
Oh, yes, that's a wonderful tip too. You're actually going to save yourself a lot of time in the long run if you do speak more clearly. There's less editing time with that transcript later. That's a great reminder. Well, if you would like to continue the conversation with Rebecca, I'm sure she'd be happy to talk with you. You can reach out to her at rebecca.ferguson@gvltec.edu. If you have content that you'd like to see in the series, questions you'd like answered, please let me know. You can email me at rachel.cobb@gvltec.edu. And definitely, if you have a tidbit worth sharing or you know someone who does, send that name along my way. We definitely want to get them on the series, doing an episode, sharing the wonderful content that you all are working on out there and the expertise that you all have. Well, that's this week's GTC Teaching Tidbit, and we'll see you next time.